So the story of Steve Bacon, to really understand who I am as a coach, it's really important to understand how I got here. So if you'll indulge me for a second, I'd love to share with you the origin story. I was born in '84, right at the start of the crack epidemic. And 6 months after I was born, my mom got addicted to crack. And as a result, I went to 14 different schools growing up, just bouncing around from family member to family member, from, school to school. And unfortunately, during that time period, I was molested as a kid. I was held as ransom for a drug dealer, apparently, that a story my family tells, that my mom owed money to. And that created a whole lot of trauma that unfortunately I had to experience. I was seeing people get shot. I've seen people overdose in my face. I've seen people smoke crack in my face. I mean, I always make the joke that my mom created the first crack in a box, where people were literally driving up to the window and she was dealing crack out of the window. So a lot of times I like to, God rest her soul, I love her so much, but I like to compare my mom to Medea, right? A weed token, Bibles quoting, right? She'll steal from you, stab you, pray for you, and feed you all in the same breath. But unfortunately, that led to a lot of neglect on her part. And so when I was 8 years old, she dropped me off at my grandmother's house. And it was just like any other time she would drop me off. But the next day, some Chico DeBarge looking dude showed up and I had no idea who he was. And he comes to me and he says, "I'm your dad and you're coming to live with me." Now, as an 8-year-old, I'm sitting here looking at him like, where is my mama? And I'm looking at my grandmother like, are you really about to let me walk out the house with this dude? And so she doesn't do anything, and he takes me to live with him. Now, as an 8-year-old, I know this in retrospect, that I took that as the women who love me will leave me, unfortunately, because whenever we experience a level of trauma, our mind takes a snapshot of what caused that trauma and then creates a strategy to never experience that again. And so went to live with my dad, and we had a very contentious, abusive relationship, which led to even more anger that I was holding on to. And then at 17, went to the military, married the first girl who said she loved me, and unfortunately physically, mentally, and emotionally abused her until she got the courage to leave. And when she did, and rightfully so, I played victim and took a loaded gun, put it in my mouth, and pulled the trigger. And the only thing that saved me was God. It was in that moment that I realized I didn't want to die. I just didn't know how to live. But I still didn't know what to do with all of that trauma that I had experienced. So I did what any sane, rational human being would do. I started drinking. I started drinking and get drunk. And unfortunately found myself on the wrong end of the law and a convicted felon at 19, a ruined military career, to only do what any sane, rational human being would do at that point. I married the second girl who said she loved me at 20 years old and repeated the process. But then I met a guy named Hank who introduced me to personal development. And now, almost 20 years later, I've created a $500,000 a year business, a 2-time author, married to my best friend who I've never laid a hand on besides the bedroom, if you know what I mean. I travel around the world, and I get a chance now to take everything that I've learned and help champions become legends. So this was the actual turning point in my life. Now, up until the time where I tried to commit suicide, I had probably experienced more trauma in that 18-year period than most people experience their whole lives. But I want you to help you understand something. When someone gets to that point where they want to take their own lives, it's because all they can see going forward, and especially me in that moment, all I could see going forward was more darkness. Like there's literally no ounce of hope. And so the prospect of just not experiencing it at all and not being here was better than ever having to experience it. But also, this suicide attempt was about just cold, hard revenge. I wanted to make everybody who ever hurt me live with the image of my brain splattered all over the wall. My mom, my dad, my wife at the time. I wanted everybody, my grandmother who had just passed away, but instead of me just being sad about her passing away, I took it as another person leaving me. And so I wanted everybody to suffer. Now, I'll go back to the story that I was sharing about when I was 8 years old, because that's really where, this all started, is I felt like my mother abandoned me. Now, in retrospect, I know different now, but in that moment for an 8-year-old, I felt like she abandoned me. And that created this narrative, a lens to which I saw the world through, that the women who love me will leave me. So fast forward to being married for the first time to this woman, and we tried to get married at 17. I think we ended up getting married at 18. But I transferred all of my self-worth into this girl. She couldn't do wrong. She couldn't operate out of the box that I created for her because I was trying so hard to stay emotionally safe. So when she started to operate outside of that box, I would get enraged. And so I had this narrative that the women who love me will leave me, but I was experiencing on a thought level that she's cheating every time she leaves the house, every time she comes home late, that she's probably messing with somebody. And that would create the emotions of rage and jealousy and fear, which would cause me to then just mess stuff up around the house. I would kick down doors and punch holes through walls. We never got our security deposits back, no matter where we lived. And then when she finally asked for the divorce is when it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. And I took this shotgun that she had bought me for Valentine's Day, and I ran in a bathroom, and I remember screaming that I'm going to make all of you suffer. And she was banging on the door like this. Stop! Stop! And I'm like, no! Everybody's going to have to live with what they've done to me. And I pulled the trigger, and nothing happened. It was the most surreal moment I've ever experienced, because it was like, whoo, whoo, shit. I almost just blew my head off. But like I said, in that moment, I realized I didn't want to die. I just didn't know how to live. And so I committed at that moment to figuring out how to actually live rather than exist. But like I said, I still didn't know what to do with all of that trauma. And that's when I started drinking. So things got a lot worse before they got better. But the turnaround was I was walking out of a courtroom, and this gentleman named Hank stepped in my way. And he said, young man, you don't know me, but let me give you a ride home. And so come to find out that the older black men on base get together monthly or weekly and talk about the issues of the younger black men on base. And my name came up, and Hank drew the short straw of who's going to try to change the direction of this young man. And so he met me at the courthouse, gave me a ride home, and I'll never forget what he said because it changed my life. He said, young man, I know you think you know where your life is about to go, but I promise you, if you change what you believe about yourself and how you see yourself, everything would change. I had no idea what he meant at that moment, but I knew that my way wasn't working, and I was willing to try his. Okay, so I want to share with you in this very short period of time the one lesson I believe that matters most. I mean, there's a lot of lessons throughout my story, but this is the one that matters most, and it's this. You cannot and will not outperform your self-image. So I want you to understand that there's a difference between identity, self-esteem, and self-image. Identity is who you are. It's what you identify as. Self-esteem is how you feel about who you are. But self-image is how you think everyone else sees you. And so it's really seeing yourself through other people's eyes, and that really determines your performance. See, I learned that I could believe that I'm great. I could even feel great about me. But really what controls my reactions and how I perform in the world is how I think other people see me. And so what I think they think of me is really what I think of me, and I'm blaming it on them. When I started to take responsibility for how I saw myself through other people's eyes. It gave me the work, all the work necessary that I needed to do. I realized that the term be, do, have, I got to experience that on an experiential level, because it wasn't about doing more stuff, but it was who I was being while doing it. And the beautiful part about relationships, whether it's to your spouse, to your kids, or even to an animal or a rock, the beautiful part about relationships is that they give us a mirror. See, I learned that people aren't my problem. They're my mirror. Because whatever I see inside of me or see inside of them is what exists inside of me. Those are judgments that I'm not willing to own. And so instead of taking my judgments and projecting on others, I see other people, and whatever judgments pop up in my mind is really things that exist inside of me, and that's my work. So when I learn to focus on self-image, that is the alpha and omega of all results. You could be the smartest person, you could be the wealthiest person, but you cannot and will not outperform how you think other people see you. You cannot outperform your self-image. So if I could go back and meet my 21-year-old self, I wrote a few things down that I want to make sure that I get, that I would specifically point out to him. Number one is don't be afraid to go deep. And don't be afraid to let go of your current identity. Because the life that you're currently building, 21-year-old self, is based on lies that you've told yourself from your childhood. It's not about what happened to you, but the meanings that you created from those experiences. I would tell him that nothing in life has meaning except the meaning we choose to give it. And all events are neutral until we lay our meaning on top of it. And that is what will create your quality of life. So go back and get rid of the stories. It's okay. You don't need to cling on to that. But the reason why you're clinging on to it is because you don't know who you are without those stories. And I'm telling you, that's the best part. That's becoming childlike again, as Jesus said. To go back to who you were before the world got its hands on you. Go back to who you were before you started comparing yourself to everyone else around you and just taking everything personal. Go back to who you were when you were free. Because in that space of letting go of the stories, you're now in a space of complete creation and life starts to get fun. The second thing I would tell my 21-year-old self is to think bigger, faster. Think bigger, faster. Create from a place of possibility, not circumstance. Know that there's what you can do and know that there's what can't be done. And then aim for one step below what can't be done and trust your intuition along the way. You don't need plan. You just need commitment. Because when you have a mother's commitment to whatever it is that you want to create, I promise you, everything you need to fulfill that commitment will be delivered to your front door. There's nothing you need to do. So recognize that you're everything with nothing, so that you can have a divine sense of well-being to open yourself up to divine listening. And then just practice divine execution. And the last thing is don't compare or compete. To compare yourself to anyone is a thief of joy. To compare yourself to anyone is how you get this feeling of unworthiness and undeserving and not good enough. But I want you to understand that the feeling of I'm not worthy or I'm not deserving, that's a man-made concept, son. Because in order to feel unworthy, that means you have to compare yourself to something else, and that's just somebody else's idea. Son, it's all made up. It's all made up. Don't let anyone convince you that something is absolute. It is literally all made up by some other guy or girl who decided this was the standard and sold everyone else on that. And now you're comparing yourself to that. Run your own race. Don't compare and don't compete. What's next for Coach Steve Bacon? Well, right now I have an amazing time coaching CEOs and entrepreneurs and celebrities and athletes and turning champions, like I said, into legends, helping them create legendary lives. And I want you to understand that that's all about subtracting, not adding, right? Going from good to great is about adding things to your resume and your repertoire. But going from great to legendary is about subtracting. Okay, it's about letting go of the box the world has put you in. But what really drives me, 3 to 5 years, 10 years from now, really what I want to spend the rest of my life doing, I have committed to ending generational trauma in the Black community in one generation. See, I absolutely wholeheartedly believe that it could be done. I want to sell ending generational trauma the same way Martin Luther King sold the bus boycott. See, he said that together we can end segregation within our transportation system if individually we commit to walking for as long as it takes. We do whatever it takes for as long as it takes, and together this is what we can accomplish. Well, I truly believe that the end of generational trauma can happen the same way. That together we can end generational trauma within our communities if individually we commit to dealing with our own stuff. And I've been working on a curriculum for the last 10 years to make understanding who you are easy and simple for anyone, whether they have a drug habit or they have a PhD. We've made the complicated simple. But can you imagine? Look at everything that we've done as a people with the trauma. Now imagine what we could do without it. So people always ask me, or often ask me, why do people hire me? And I'll be honest, my answer is almost different every time. I know a lot of people have canned answers, but mine usually comes off the cuff. So if you'll indulge me for a second, just follow me. People come to me when they've tried everything else. They've gone to the seminars, they've hired the other coaches, they've read the books, and they still can't figure out why they can't get the results they want. And I keep telling people all the time that there are 6 levels of change and only 2 of them are permanent, and that's your belief system and your self-image. But most seminars, most books, most coaches will never go there with you because how deep you need to go. Me, I love to go deep. I was SpongeBob's coach. I live at the bottom of the ocean. So I love going there with people and safely guiding them into the darkness and right back out. But people also come to me because they want to live legendary lives. And let me tell you what a legendary life is. A legendary life is when you have a 10 in every area of life. You're at a 10 in your marriage. You're at a 10 in your finances. You're at a 10 in your spiritual. You're at a 10 with your kids. You're at a 10 with your health. And I promise you that all of that is possible because the going narrative out there is that you can't have it all. And that's not true. With time and attention and conscious creation, you can literally create a 10 in all areas of life and live what I call a legendary life. See, people come to me when they want to live a life without borders or boundaries. People come to me when they want to live a life where they can shape the world in their image, where they shape their reality in their image, when they want to see and experience the God self within them. So people come to me when they want to collapse time frames and create more in a year than they ever thought they can create in 10 years. People come to me when they want to learn how to erase negative thinking. Yes, I said literally erase, so that the only thing that exists in your mind is the conscious thoughts that lead you to where you want to go. See, I used to think that you could only just ignore negative thoughts, but then I learned the principles of conscious creation that I can literally erase negative thinking so that I'm in the zone all day long. And so people come to me when they want to operate in this world like Neo in the Matrix. I'm looking for Neos because I'm Morpheus. And I'm here to show you just what you're actually capable of. I'm going to do it through hard love, but love. I'm going to do it through extreme accountability. And I'm going to do it through extreme awareness. And so when people spend time with me, yes, I am tough. Yes, I will hold you accountable. And no, I do not care if you like me. Because if I care if you like me, then I'm not serving you. So my job is to wake you up to your highest self, to eliminate every small thought you have about you. That's God's work. Because doubt is unnatural. Hear what I just said. Doubt is unnatural. I know everyone else around you experiences doubt, and that makes you think that it's normal. But I'm telling you, doubt is unnormal. It's just the box that you've been put in. So people hire me when they want to get rid of the box, the belief systems, the judgments, the self-image, the values that the world has put on them that has boxed their infinite imagination in. Your imagination can go wherever you want it to go. It can create whatever you want to create. Just look at a 5-year-old. It's the reason why Jesus said, become childlike again, not childish, but childlike. So imagine having the characteristics of a child, but the wisdom of a queen or a king. That is heaven on earth. And so people come to me when that's what they desire to experience. So, this has been an amazing experience. And the thing I've most enjoyed is the staff. I'll be honest. They're incredible. I mean, from the moment that I walked in, I felt like a rock star. They've treated me, even though they've never seen me before, never heard me before, they literally, like a rock star, LA, from the moment, just snapping pictures, right? And then coming in to meet the rest of the crew and treating me like I was Jay-Z. Like that's the probably, like, you know, you imagine yourself in these type of environments, right? You're sleeping at night. And for me, I used to listen to Closer to My Dreams by Guapale when I was homeless, right? Because I knew one day I would get to this type of space. And so I want to share my deepest gratitude to Shay and his team, because they've truly made a dream come true for me. I am today, right now, in this moment, 6 years ago, me, wildest dreams. And I owe that to Shay. So their treatment and treating you like the rock star that they see you. They don't see you as you see you. They see you as who you could be. And they created an environment to bring that out. And for that, I'm grateful.